Hello and welcome to Gaming Friday here on Off the Shelf Reviews. I'm Gary.
And I'm Geoff.
And today we are playing one of the biggest train wrecks in video game history, Aliens Colonial Marines, which was released back on February the 11th, 2013 by Gearbox Studios.
Yeah, Gearbox did themselves a mischief on this one, didn't they?
Well, it's one of the most devastating sort of offensive games to ever come out, simply because it's attached to one of the most beloved franchises, one of the best licenses in movie history.
Yeah.
That's the Alien franchise.
Of course.
And obviously one of the most beloved sci-fi films of all time, James Cameron's Aliens.
Yeah.
And this is now canon. This is official 20th Century Fox canon sequel to Aliens.
Yeah.
So, retcon and everything.
Yeah.
And so, but this game's kind of got a. I mean, right now we're looking at the fourth and final DLC pack, the Stasis Interrupted pack, which goes a small way to explaining the backstory and their retconning of reintroducing a character we saw previously die in Alien 3, and that is Corporal Dwayne Hicks. Who, for whatever reason, is alive here. He, of course, throughout the single-player campaign, spoiler for a 3-year-old game, I mean, of course, if you're a fan of the movies, you already know that this is what's happened. But yeah, during the course of the actual campaign for Aliens Colonial Marines, you find Corporal Hicks, and he waves away his reason for being alive and back on the planet with a hand gesture of it'll take too long to explain. I ain't got time to explain it.
Yeah.
So lo and behold, the final DLC,
He should have just said
Stasis
it's in the
Interrupted. You should have just said it's in the DLC. You can buy the season pass for $29.99, or you can buy Stasis Interrupted for $14.99.
Yeah.
You know, you
With
decide.
a hand wave.
With a hand wave, yeah, and a wink and a nod and a nudge and and all the other corporate sellout signs.
Bullshit. Yeah.
Exactly, and so, but Michael Biehn, he's lending the voice here. Lance Henriksen, of course, lending his voice. They even got the voice actors back in for Apone, I think, and Drake and Gorman, and so.
Yeah, this is official law. This overrides Aliens 3, technically.
Well, it kind of doesn't, because I mean, you don't really see. You see a mangled corpse of Hicks in Aliens 3.
Yeah.
I mean, Ripley doesn't really spend much time over his corpse. He's kind of bandaged up and ready to be, for the funeral sequence of the film. And so, this DLC does go in to explain how it was possible for Hicks to sort of be woken up while he was in his cryo chamber, because the Weyland-Yutani mercenaries had come on the ship to try and find out what had happened, and he got woken up. And so he ended up wrestling with another mercenary.
Yeah.
And it's the mercenary who was thrown into his cryo chamber and ejected at the time of the beginning of Alien 3.
Right.
So it's kind of believable, but it does also kind of feel like fan service to bring back one of these characters. I literally always thought that they were going to bring back a character which would not seem killed on screen. Maybe like Apone or even Hudson, who was sort of dragged off screen and never seen killed.
Yeah.
But one thing this game also does is also kind of mess with the continuity, because at the end of Aliens, the colony was kind of an explosion the size of Nebraska.
Yeah.
I think Bishop said, and yet somehow the colony is still intact in this game. And of course, the alien ship, the derelict ship, has also sustained no damage in that explosion either.
Yeah.
So much so that we can revisit, one of the best locations in the Alien universe, the colony on LV-426.
I think that is one of the big problems with this game, isn't it? Is I mean, this game came out full of problems.
Absolutely, we're going to get into some of those in a little bit.
The animations were terrible, and the the graphics were.
It suffered from frame rate issues. It suffered from screen tearing. It suffered from piss poor AI in both the enemies and your co-op companions. Oof. Wow, you just took a
bullet.
A sentry gun to the back of the head.
Yeah, yeah. It was so lazy. Like, this came out, and it was also sold very poorly, wasn't it? Because it was sold as being one thing. They demoed it,
Well,
looking shiny
let's
and
have a
gleaming
small
and
look.
amazing.
Let's have a small look back at the history of the development of this game. Okay, back in 2001, there was an Aliens Colonial Marines game in development.
Yeah.
And the idea of that story was that the Colonial Marines would send another ship to investigate the disappearance of the Sulaco, to find out why they haven't come back yet,
Yeah.
to find out where the crew went, to find out what the hell the ship's still doing out there.
Yeah.
And so this ship would come along and find, obviously, aliens on board the Sulaco, or, the story would go on from there, where they'd go back to the planet.
Yeah.
Of course, this was 2001, and then 5 years later, Sega would get the rights from 20th Century Fox to make all future Aliens games, or Alien licensed games.
Yeah.
At this point, the aforementioned Aliens Colonial Marines game from 2001 was kind of shelved.
Yeah.
And the rights to that, of course, went to Sega, along with all other materials that existed at the time. Then, in 2006, Sega announced that now that they have the rights to Aliens, they're going to make an AVP game, which would be the game that we recently looked at, and Aliens Colonial Marines. And they said that that's going to Gearbox Studios, and that it would have nothing to do with the original 2001 planned Colonial Marines game.
Yeah.
Then in 2008, Gearbox had a bunch of layoffs, and they announced that the game had been delayed or cancelled indefinitely.
Right.
And this was the first time I'd ever heard of Randy Pitchford. This was the first time I'd heard his name thrown around as the person who was going to be responsible for this game. And I was devastated to hear that it was going to be cancelled or be delayed. I'm like, it had so much potential back in 2001, and now 2008, and it's been cancelled again.
7 years later.
7 years later, exactly. There was another game as well that Sega also shelved, and that was an RPG Aliens game being made by Obsidian, who of course had made some of the worked on a bunch of RPG games. It's obviously mixed fanfare. They often make quite buggy games, but lo and behold, they are great at the RPG genre, and it's a shame that Sega shelved that and gave the money instead to Randy Pitchford to make this Aliens Colonial Marines game. Then back in 2012, it was announced that the game had been delayed yet again, and no one knew why. And then eventually, early 2013, the game came out, and then we all realized why. It wasn't until after the game came out that whistleblowers started to talk about how mismanaged this game was. And you can tell from the opening, when we're introduced to how many different companies that worked on this game. Of course, Gearbox foremost here, followed by Timegate Studios, followed by Demers Studios, followed by Check 6 Games, followed by Nerve Software. And it's like, well, who worked on what here? And it's kind of come to light. I mean, these are on Kotaku and other forums and websites. Staff members have kind of let up on their anti-disclosure agreements or whatever other stuff they had to sign to say they wouldn't talk about it, and now talking about it. And they've all kind of said that, Gearbox was a kind of small company at the time. They'd done expansions to the Half-Life. And then, at the same time, they had a huge success with Borderlands, which no one really saw coming. And then, of course, they were quickly working on Duke Nukem Forever, or trying to repackage and resell that at around the same time as working on Borderlands 2. So you've got this small little company that's now making Duke Nukem Forever, Borderlands 2, and Aliens Colonial Marines. And so they decided, well, we've already had all this money from Sega to make Aliens. We'll pay these other studios, which are also dying to work on an Aliens licensed game, whilst we finish off and make Borderlands 2, because that is our game. It's our license. And so all these other companies were given different bits and pieces over this 6-year development period to try and piece together a game. And then when Sega finally turned to Gearbox and said, hey, where's the game? Gearbox shipped Borderlands 2, took all the materials back from these other games companies and then quickly pieced it together. Some staff members said that it wasn't a case of trying to make a game, it was a case of trying to fix the game before the shipping line.
Right.
And that was it. And the final product shown, as we mentioned earlier, with piss poor AI, horrible lighting, terrible story, unfinished characters. The list would just go on and on and on as to all the things that this game has gotten wrong.
Yeah.
And to add, salt to the wounds of us Alien fans, is that Randy Pitchford still says that this game was a dream project for him, that he facilitated from start to finish, and that it is a great game. His words to this day. He still won't admit that he made a bad game, that he made bad business decisions, and that he fully insulted and shat on the fans everywhere.
Yeah.
And not only that, to make the fact that this game is now also canon, it just...
Yeah, well, I mean, this is the real problem with it, is even, because this is actually the modded version, right? So,
what we're looking at now,
Yeah, there's a major mod fix for it. No, you can see me up there. I didn't know they could aim up, right? But yeah, there's a major mod fix which fixes a lot of the things like the animations and stuff like that for the aliens, fixes the way the soldiers work, fixes a whole bunch of stuff, does some texture overhaul, lighting overhaul, effects overhauls, so it tarts it up a bit for the PC version. And I mean, to be honest, like, I know, what is it, 2000 and when did it come out?
2013, so it's only 3 years old.
It's only 3 years old. I mean, it doesn't look great for a 2013. I mean, obviously this is...
Well, on the console versions, it looked ugly.
Game,
on the Xbox 360 and on the PlayStation 3, this game was ugly.
Yeah.
It on the release date, it looked like it looked like shit. It looked like an Xbox original title.
Yeah.
It looked like PlayStation 2 graphics.
Yeah.
It was the fact that the characters looked cardboard. Their dull, unblinking eyes.
Yeah. Really
it was just poor design on every level.
Yeah.
Now, as we were saying, both the consoles did get patches. They got continuous patches over time, which sort of fixed the AI and sort of fixed some of the dodgy programming that was in there.
Yeah.
But it nowhere near addressed the long laundry list of fixes that the fans on the forums were requesting. It's very rare I will ever join a website and join a forum for a video game, but I did for the Gearbox Aliens Colonial Marines. I never actually joined it, but I haunted their forum to see what other fans of the game were saying.
Yeah.
And all of the list of fixes that we put up there were partially listened to, or whether the staff that were working on it looked at it and went, yeah, but we ain't getting paid anymore to work on this game, so you're going to get what you're going to get. And so people were literally asking, hey, can we have the source code for this game so that we can take it and go and make it what we needed it to be, considering you guys aren't being paid to do it? And to which it always amazes me when you look back at the promotional material for the game and look at Randy Pitchford and his team all explaining how this is the dream project, how this is the one video game that everyone in the industry would want to work on. Just to see why they lied. And that also went into the fact that there was a lot of controversy since then with the lawsuits that followed with this game, with Gearbox saying none of what you've heard is true. We worked on the game from start to finish. It is a brilliant product. To Sega going, hey, where's all our money gone over all these years? Why has this happened and why has this happened? And then Gearbox turned around and go, well, Sega, you told us to make it more like Call of Duty, so that's why 3/4 of the game you're up against Marine and mercenary opponents instead of the aliens, because Call of Duty was selling so well back then, and so you told us to do that. And then Sega's like, no, we didn't. We told you to make the game like this. And so it just back and forth. Who to blame? Who to blame? Who to blame? And it turns out that I think Gearbox ended up paying out like 1.5 million or something inconsequential and small and tiny compared to how much they ripped everybody off. And that was the thing. When this game came out, I brought, and I know Ian also brought, the £75 version of the game, which came with the movie voice characters with the weapons, with the skins, so that you could use them in multiplayer, and that was about it. Other than a collectible figurine.
£75 for that
Considering 2 weeks later, the game was like £20.
Yeah.
I mean, it dropped astronomically in price due to the bad word of mouth. So much so that I think Amazon stopped taking returns for it. But it was just a colossally huge disappointment.
It was it was a hell of a rip-off, wasn't it, really? Yeah, they did an Ubisoft with it. They advertised one thing and gave you something completely different.
Yep.
Oh, scary bit. Aliens checking out, moving past the lockers.
So the single-player campaign for this game is approximately 5 to 6 hours in length.
Yeah.
The difficulty level at launch for this game was absolutely terrible. I mean, I'm just watching this right now. It's a very Alien Isolation-esque what's going on. And this is also something I will say is that the Stasis Interrupted DLC for this game was a hell of a lot better on its own than the entire campaign that launched with the game.
Yeah.
Whether this was handled again by one of the other studios that were working on the game, or whether this was Gearbox's one actual donation to the actual game, who knows? Mm-hmm. This is actually quite a solid campaign of characters and story. When you compare it to the game that it launched with.
Well, as I say, this is the modded version, and even if you fix all the sort of cosmetic / mechanical features of this game, it doesn't change the fact that they absolutely popped a squat on the lore of Aliens, doesn't it? They had such little consideration for the narrative that had gone before it. And I think that's the real tragedy with this game, is that the story will probably piss you off if you're a big fan of Aliens.
Definitely, and not only that, is that the game also has a sequel bait ending.
Yeah.
Which is just terrible. And the fact that, I mean, it's no holds barred. This game is never going to get a sequel. I don't think Gearbox are ever going to get to touch the Alien franchise again. Not only that, with the amount of terrible sales that both the last Alien vs. Predator game, the Alien vs. Predator movies, this game, it was any wonder that Creative Assembly's Alien Isolation was ever allowed to be finished in the first place. Yet alone, that game also didn't, sell remarkably well because of how many terrible Aliens games had come out before it.
Yeah.
This one here is just kind of like a nail in the coffin of one of the greatest, or could be one of the greatest gaming franchises ever, just to see it done such a injustice.
Yeah.
We have terrible level design in this game. It literally revolves around running around two characters, Bella and O'Neill, which are two of the blandest marine characters ever in an Alien environment.
Yeah.
The fact that their behavior and their AI was so broken that they would be shooting at nothing. They would pretty much be firing blanks at the aliens because they'd do no damage, or they just wouldn't hit them.
Yeah.
It just broke the immersion entirely, especially when you would have thought that this is also a co-op game, 4-player co-op. So you'd expect to jump in with 3 of your friends, and what I was hoping and what we were being told was that each person would take the role of a different type of marine who would specialize in different weapons, or being able to secure bulkhead doors or alien entranceways, or someone else would be good at setting up sentry guns, or someone with a smart gun. It was no, you all just pretty much bland standard marine fodder, and because of these small environments you ended up just getting crowded on top of each other, struggling to actually get the kills. It was like, you're not afraid of the aliens anymore, you're now on a bug hunt trying to kill the aliens and be the one to kill the most.
There was little peril in this, like even the bits which are scary are not really scary, are they? They're just almost comical.
Well, if I was to give this game any credit at all, it would be that it does build the atmosphere brilliantly. It does look like you are on the set of an Aliens film, with the when you get outside and you see the remains of the atmospheric processor, when you revisit locations aboard the Sulaco, when you see Bishop's torn legs, there's all these sort of little Easter eggs and fan service, but the atmosphere is there. The background shots look brilliant. Some of the corridors look fantastic. The lighting, atmosphere, and sound and music all builds very nicely. Voice acting, not so much.
I was going to say, all of that is really just the design that had gone before.
Exactly. It was just these were the environments, these are the designs. There was one particularly memorable level in the actual campaign that ships, where you are running around the bowels of the atmospheric processor, and there are all of these aliens that have been infected from the explosion, and they are all volatile. They'll all explode, and they're covered in acidic pustules.
Nice.
And you are also unarmed at this time.
Yeah.
And if you make too much noise, the alien will come up in your face, and if you try and move, it will kill you outright or just explode. And so there's these great moments of tension where you're trying to use stealth to get past the alien. There's another sequence later on when you're also unarmed, or I think you might even be armed, but the alien is so big that it just one hit kills you, and you have to run and hide from it and try and climb ladders and get through vents. And again, it built the excitement up that this one alien could kill you. But then the rest of the time you're just shooting mercenaries or shooting aliens, and it just becomes uninteresting.
Yeah.
But I will say the difficulty level on the game before offered no challenge. Even on the ultimate badass difficulty setting, you could floor the game in, like I said, 5 to 6 hours. The games makers did actually make, as I said before, patches to try and increase the difficulty level and give it more balance. And of course, subsequently, since the game has undergone mods from the community, the difficulty level has also been tweaked and modified again to actually give you a somewhat formidable experience within this game.
Yeah, that was what I think a lot of the mod tweaking involved, is making the aliens move properly and making the soldiers move properly and behave properly. A lot of the AI methods, I suppose.
Yeah.
That's some of the biggest changes that the mods have made. And yeah, because the animations were fucking terrible, weren't they? They were just like jerking around. It wasn't, because they looked so unorganic. There was nothing.
Well, it was the fact that aliens were like homing missiles when they came at you. They would just come out from wherever they were in straight line right towards you.
Yeah.
And it was just like, where's the fluidity in their movement? Where is it, like we saw in the trailer, where they're bounding from one wall to another wall, to the ceiling, to the floor, to behind you, and then you've been impaled by their tail because they move too fast.
Yeah.
And these aliens, they're just clumsy. However, again in the mod, they have tried to make the aliens again more formidable, so that if you're not quick on your reflexes and you have the difficulty up high enough, a single alien can kill you, which it should be able to, because otherwise, that's the excitement of the menace of this creature, is that you want to feel that way. If not, it's not doing right.
That's it.
Now, this game also, Colonial Marines, the single player, is only really half of the element of this game. The multiplayer was going to be the other big portion of the game. And, of course, that community is gone. It is dead. It was abandoned within 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Now, the only way you're ever going to get to play this game online, multiplayer, is if, like the previous AVP game, you have a select group of friends that are dedicated to this license, that just want to keep reliving, these memories over and over again. You will get together and you'll kind of roleplay and play for a couple hours with your friends. But don't expect to get the game today and actually find anyone online to play with on either console or on PC, because the servers are pretty much dead. Which is a shame, because some of the game's standard multiplayer maps that it shipped with were just serviceable.
Yeah.
But the few map packs that did come out were really quite nice. There was a movie pack one, which let you go back to the Nostromo, let you go to the derelict ship. The other map pack, I think, was Reconnaissance.
Yeah.
Which added a couple of more maps. Some were okay, some I haven't seen because no one ever purchased the season pass to play them. Much like the previous Alien vs Predator game.
Yeah.
But some of the maps were fairly nice. One of the biggest things that the game had going for it was the bug hunt, which for me was the best DLC. And it's something that should have been in the game in the first place, because it's simply horde mode.
Yeah.
Paying extra for something that's in the game, it was just Gearbox just rinsing this license for as much money as they could.
Yeah.
Of course, you'd expect it to launch with the game because it was an unfinished product. Of course, Horde mode wasn't going to be finished. And the thing that the Horde mode could have worked, it was what everybody on the forums were asking Gearbox for more of.
Yeah.
And they just didn't deliver. They delivered 3 maps where you fought a bunch of aliens and then a bunch of Marines. And then
where do I go, Gary?
I don't know, Jeff. I don't.
You've done this one, haven't you? You've done
about
this.
3 years ago now, Jeff, and I can't remember which button you have to press. But so you're gonna have to wander around in the dark for 5 minutes, just like I did in Alien Isolation.
Yeah.
Just wander around and punch stuff and hit stuff until doors open.
Nothing's opening. Anyway, sorry, yeah, Bug Hunt.
So the Bug Hunt was great for 4 people to get together and play Horde mode essentially, where you'd have to accumulate enough credits to open doors to move further into the level, whichever level you were on, and then buy better weapons and then get sentry guns, smart guns, and it kind of became quite exciting. For me and Ian, who I played it with the most, it was our chance to roleplay, because you could be Hudson and Drake and Apone defending the control room from aliens.
Yeah.
And so you have these moments where you can just role play and have fun. But it was then you'd have to fight endless waves of mercenaries, and there was no options. There was no freedom to change any of these pre-scripted things. So if you wanted to go just against aliens, you can't. You have to go against aliens and then mercenaries, then aliens, then mercenaries.
Yeah.
And it was such a wasted potential. There could have been so much more. One of the other best game modes that the game did have was what I assumed was going to be the bulk of the multiplayer, was the Left 4 Dead style nature of 4 Marines have to go from point A to point B through an obstacle course, whilst the aliens try and pick them off along the way.
Yeah.
4 people play the Marines, 4 people play the aliens, and there's different alien types, and it just didn't work properly. It was a fun game mode to play, but often or not, the Marines all had to converge in a single point to get on an elevator, and it would just take one alien, and one alien player in particular, to take this one very specific alien class to get into that lift, detonate and explode, bang, all 4 Marines dead. Which just made some levels absolutely unclearable. Because aliens would lurk around that point, they would deliberately pick the exploding xenomorph, the acid splatter, and just kaboom, team wipeout. Not only that, one of the most aggravating alien classes in multiplayer was the Spitter, because they could lurk in the shadows somewhere and just keep spitting acid goo, which was pretty much an insta-kill on whoever it landed upon.
Yeah.
But other than that, there was straight up deathmatch and team deathmatch. Nothing too exciting with the multiplayer. It was fun to play for a little while. It was a hell of a lot better than the single player. The fact that the game did have a level up system where for both the Marines and the aliens, where you then unlocked more skins and more abilities, it worked. But again, it was kind of a knockoff Call of Duty sort of system where you could then eventually modify your weapons somewhat.
Yeah.
It was okay. It was just something to do whilst you went from game to game. Of course, some people that unlocked the higher abilities were better off, but it was fairly balanced, and it was fun enough.
It was just about. Yeah, I mean, it was good. I played some of that with you, Gary, and I thought it was all right, to be honest.
Yeah.
As far as it went, but then I guess beggars can't be choosers. Do you know what I mean? But I mean, it was okay because it was aliens. But again, all of it is the license carrying it.
Exactly, it is the license carrying it, and that's the only reason why. Sometimes even today, Ian and myself would be like, "Hey, let's load up Aliens Colonial Marines. Let's go and kill some aliens for half an hour and just shoot the shit."
Yeah.
And it's just a good thing to have in the background. And it's only because of the Aliens license. If it wasn't, this game would have been forgotten and abandoned as soon as it came out.
Yeah, clearly. And this is the thing. Like, this is why everybody feels like they were held to ransom by Gearbox, really, because. And that's why Gearbox felt like they could just take the piss, I think, because, you know, like, we have had so few decent Aliens games and films, And the first 3 films, I mean, it depends. The third one's controversial, but I know you love it, and I think it's alright too. But the first 3 films were absolutely the dog's bollocks.
Yeah.
And then there's been so little to match that, since. I'd say, like recently we've had Alien Isolation, which was pretty good.
It was fantastic. I really loved it.
I'm still waiting till I get my VR headset. I'm waiting for the price to be a bit more reasonable, and then I'm going to really enjoy Alien Isolation in VR. And I don't want to kind of go through it normally but I just want the VR experience. I don't know if it's going to work. It might end up making me sick, and then I'll end up having to do
as it has made a lot of people.
But just the initial first few levels, and also the prequel DLC that you get in there of being on the Nostromo and stuff is absolutely awesome. And there's some real atmosphere in that. I mean, it's everything you kind of wished this would be, in terms of, but it's more like Alien 1 instead of like Alien 2, because Colonial Marines, you think, it should be all about kicking ass and Marines getting murdered. So, but this, I mean, this is as close as you're going to get. That's the problem. So...
It is, and it is, as I've said, utterly wasteful, disappointing, terrible end boss battle. You don't get to use the smart gun that much. The characters are bland and totally forgettable. The environments look nice, but what's going on in there is all you're killing is mercenaries. This game is a disaster. It still is a disaster. Yeah. I have promised never to give Gearbox a single penny more, ever. I am never buying another licensed game from them again. Nothing, ever. Because of how disrespectful they handled this franchise. Despite the fact that I still occasionally play this game as a guilty pleasure. But any Aliens game is kind of going to become my guilty pleasure, whether it's good or bad, because I am biased. And I will say that if you can find this game for a $5, second-hand, pre-owned, whatever, or even get it on the PC with the the souped-up graphics, and so long as you've got friends to play it with, there's still some good in the game. There were some good thoughts in there. It's also just as curiosity, just to see how colossally they could fuck it up. Well,
if you're an Aliens fan, you have to get this game, because that's all there is for you, other than Alien Isolation. I mean, Alien Isolation, you must get Alien Isolation.
Yes, most definitely.
But this one is
if you want a pulse rifle, if you want to shoot a smart gun, even if it is retarded,
and you want to play with your mates,
and you want to definitely, if you can get a group together of mates to play this game on a budget, and guarantee you're still going to have some fun with it. Definitely,
for sure.
Well, I think we've ranted on quite enough about Aliens, Geoff. So I just want to say, thanks for watching, everyone. Thanks for listening. We'll be back next Friday with another video game. Of course, reviews on Thursday, sequential on Saturday. You can find us on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Patreon. See you next time.
Take it easy.